Good afternoon. It is not Wednesday, but a Thursday, my dudes. Once again, we kind of missed the time because people were sick and stuff. And also, something has been tilting me quite hard. I've noticed around South Africa is just a lot of misconceptions about how to spec a machine correctly based on your budget. So today, I'm going to give you my ultimate guide on how to do that effectively. Instead of just going through, specials and speaking about the stuff on the Evetech store, what I'm going to do is basically work off of a budget of 20,000 Rand and then divvy up the parts and stuff into those brackets and then explain my choices and why I've got it set up like that and why you should also consider setting it up like that. And per my perspective, it would be the best situation or best way to go about doing things. So first things first is I think we're just going to go and shop from the special section, which is just going to help us along, right? So the way that we want to set this up is basically you want to spend about the same amount of money on a graphics card as you would on your motherboard, processor, and RAM, all right? So those two are going to be equivalent. And if our budget is, say, 20,000 Rand, I would say you're going to use 35%. Very specific number, I know, but about 35% on each of those items. So for instance, we have an RX 6600 8GB at 6.5, so let's add that to cart for now, right? So there's our RX 6600. Now if we go into the winter deals section again and I look at upgrade kits, we've got a couple of options over here. Now which one should I buy? Well, based on technology, availability, etc., the latest chipset and processor within your budget is definitely going to be the best choice in almost all cases. And what's nice is we have a very prevalent example of that right in front of us. So if you look, there's two kits here that are within 500 Rand of each other. The 12400F beats the 5600 in every single gaming argument basically, and because it's on a V660 chipset on the latest Intel 12th gen chipset, this has PCI Express 4.0 capacity, whereas this kit doesn't because a B450 is from previous generation. So looking at between the two, both are pretty damn good deals, but this one is clearly head and shoulders above the other one because you're just getting a spec up. You're getting newer, better, faster. It's almost always the case, right? When you look at stuff like this, and it's a 500 Rand difference. So we're going to add that to cart. So that's the main portions of what we need, right? For our base of our PC is going to be your motherboard, processor, and RAM. Really nice that you can do that in one straight upgrade kit and assign a sort of value, a set value to that. And then on the other side, like I said, with the graphics card, I would just browse specials and see what's the best chipset that you could get within your bracket, especially. That's more consideration than brand these days. A lot of products, if they've got a 3-year warranty on them, they're going to be built to the manufacturer's specification, and that's how they can put a 3-year warranty on it, because it costs the manufacturer to do that warranty. It's going to cost them, so they're going to want to build a better quality product so that it doesn't fail, so they don't have to refund you for your purchase down the line. Because imagine you use something for 2 years and then they have to refund you the full price. It's not good for the manufacturer. So definitely try and stick to that. Now, what are you going to spend the other 30% of your budget on? Well, this is really going to be your finishing parts, your case, your power supply, your storage, and then your cooling, right? And they sort of, if I put them in order of importance, I'd put case at the top, I'd put your cooling actually as number 2, I'd put power supply as number 3, and then I'd put your storage as your fourth sort of most important option. Because storage often goes on special and it's not something that's immediately expensive. Other things to consider, honestly, the most two important considerations for me, your two longest running parts are going to be your motherboard and also your case. Those are going to be the two parts you probably swap out the least, especially if you get a really good case. Even if you spend a little bit more on it up front, it's made of metal. As long as you look after it, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So with that in mind, coming back to the special section, we look at CPU coolers. A 240mm on special at this sort of price, I've got 30% of a 20,000 Rand budget, so it gives me 6 grand with which to play with. So 1,000 Rand on a cooler is really not a bad idea. So let's go ahead and add that to cart. Alright, then we need a PC case to put all of this in. Now what I suggest you do with a PC case is always just look for the default front mesh setup and then some decent exhaust. So this NX320 is actually absolutely perfect as an example. It's got decent graphics card size. Over 300 millimeters is good. It's not going to be too short. If you do want to get a bigger GPU in the future, then you are going to have some clearance space for that. And we need to be able to consider water cooling. So this is actually a really good example for this. It's got, you can put top mount on here as well. You can have a rear radiator and then the front. And this one, unlike the older NX410, isn't dimensioned for top mount radiator. So we're going to be putting our radiator up front. And you can see it's got space for the radiator to go in there. So we know that it is going to work. And this for $1,000 is kind of a steal, considering that I believe it also comes with the 3 front side fans. So what you can do in this case is you could put a push pull, so you could have fans going into the radiator and then out the back, which leads to not really a performance enhancement so much as an audio enhancement, because you can run the fans low because they've got assistance there. Top mount as well means that you can move those, you've got space to move those fans up top, and that's generally how you want your airflow to go, is from front to back like that. You can though do a downward one as well and invert those fans. I have seen a couple of people do this, especially with harder fronted PCs. It does work out a little bit better, but if it's a full mesh front like this NX320, then this is going to be absolutely perfect for our build. So we add that to clock. Alright, so now we need power and storage. Now power supplies is one of the things that I've found has been massively overspec'd in South Africa, and I don't know what this trend is or where it comes from, because there's absolutely no inherent benefit from doing it. Yes, you can buy 1,000 watt 80 plus gold, which is what I use, but I test things like 3090s and 12900Ks that use 300 watts per single component, and I need a proper 600 watts worth of output. But if you look at the RX 6600, it's like a 150 160 watt chip. If you look at the processor, the 12400F, it's a 65 watt TDP chip. If you add 10% on top just for safety, I'd always throw in even more than that, even like 10 or 15 or even 20 watts. So if it's like 150, add 20 watts. If it's 65, add 10 watts, and that's basically what you're going to need for those components. Your motherboard, your hard drives, and etc. is generally going to be under 100 watts. Your motherboard will be about 30 to 60 depending on your chipsets and stuff, and then your hard drives are about 30 watts each. So if you're doing the quick math with me, that leaves you at like 400 watts is going to be your absolute maximum, and you're probably never going to use that. That's if all components are using their maximum wattage simultaneously. So do I need 1,000 watt for this system where my absolute maximum is going to be close to 400? The 750 is more than enough. An 80 plus bronze efficiency at gold rating means that this is going to give me 80% no matter what of its maximum capacity. So its maximum capacity is 750, so I'm going to get 80% at all times. So 20% off means it's still 600 watts no matter what. So there's more than enough headroom with this. There's no reason to overspend on this. This is something that I don't understand why it happens in South Africa. It's part of the reason why I'm making this video. Alrighty, and then lastly, we get to storage, and I'll come over to the special section because there wasn't as many on the winter specials. It was only the Acer 1 TB. And what I suggest you do, especially if you're on a budget and you want to keep it a bit tighter, is get yourself a nice NVMe of 500 gigs or so, something like I saw now over here. This would be perfect. The Clev, it's got a really nice RGB on it, but if you want something a little bit beefier, like for instance Samsung is such a fire and forget product. These things just never die. They're incredibly well put together, these NVMe's. So you add one of those to cart, and then I would suggest you get yourself like a 2 TB or even a 4 TB spinning disk, because if you look at the price of those, the amount of storage you get for how much you pay, spinning disks are a lot cheaper, but the NVMe is going to keep the machine feeling really punchy and responsive. But that being said, something like this is absolutely perfect, and it's well within our budget and specification. So we're going to add that to cart. It's a 256 meg drive, so it's going to be pretty fast. And as you see, I've actually come in under budget, under by a couple grand, because I worked everything within the ratio. Now, for instance, if I've got this extra budget, I could remove that GPU and get a slightly better one. And that's the way that you should spec your PC, is get it all spec'd like this. So you've got all of your required parts to build a full functioning PC like this, and then look at what you can possibly upgrade. Things that I would honestly push you to upgrade on before GPU would be your motherboard, but this is a prime, it's a plus D4, it's a very good motherboard. For instance, so this already has a really good motherboard in this kit, which is why we selected it. So do I really need to upgrade that? Not particularly. I could put a 12700 on there even in the future, and it's going to run pretty damn well. My cooling, it's a 240 mil. It's already significantly overkill. My case, maybe I don't like this one. Maybe I want something a bit more premium and a little bit better, like a CK560, like a deep cool, because it's something you're going to have forever. It's something that doesn't lose value. Rather spend money on those areas than you would on like a GPU, because 2 years from now, this GPU is going to be basically completely irrelevant. At the rate that GPUs are going at the moment, we've seen with RDNA 2 and RTX, this thing doesn't have a great shelf life. So don't spend too much money on those areas if you can avoid it. Rather spend more on the longevity parts than anything else. And then in a 3-year cycle, you're not going to have to upgrade any of those parts. You can just replace that GPU that's now maybe a little bit dated, and that'll effectively save you money and your cost of ownership, which is why I always go back to it. Because you got to think about how much it's going to cost you to own this product from when you buy it. So for instance, this bundle has a 3-year warranty on it, right? So everything in there at 7,000 Rand split over 3 years. Now it's 2,300 Rand per year that it's costing you to own that product. That's now a couple Rand a day. When you think about it like that, okay, that's, you know, it's a really good solid kit. This is not going to be irrelevant considering it's a 12100F. It's a proper 6-core 12-thread processor. It's not going to be irrelevant. The other thing you need to ask yourself though is, what do you want to do? So for instance, if you want to stream as well, then get a better processor. Get an RTX GPU that you can stream through the RTX GPU as well. But this is how I budget for stuff and how I lay stuff out and how I generally spec machines. And that way everything sort of matches, and it will also avoid bottleneck. You don't want to have a situation where you're spending 20% on your budget on your upgrade kits and 60% of your budget on your GPU and then finishing it with rubbish parts, because it's just going to affect the longevity of your system. It's not going to be cooled well. It's going to die quicker. It's just going to be a bad time. So this is my ultimate sort of guide for you on buying, with all of the considerations that you need to put in, how you're going to segment your budget for each component, and make sure that you generally won't have a bottleneck. And it's really nice. I think this is one of the first times ever that you can actually do it almost exactly within those percentages. So just rounding it up once again, it's 35% budget is going to go towards the GPU, 35% or so budget is going to go towards your motherboard, processor and RAM, and then the other 30% will be for your cooling, your case, and your storage, okay, and well, your PSU, so the other finishing products, right? So I really hope that this guy helps you guys get a much better experience out of your system. And I just don't, I really, guys, there's this fad in South Africa, people buying 1200 watt platinum series PSUs of 3-4 grand to run like RX 6600s. There's absolutely no reason for that. As long as you've got about, I'd say 20% even headroom, the power supply is never going to struggle. It's designed to run at 600 watts consistently. But if you're speccing like a 750 watt, for instance, with a system with an RX 6800 or like a RTX 3080 that's going to use half of that, that's probably not going to be enough. Then you want an 850 gold or a 1000 watt gold where you're getting 92% of that current all the time, where it's going to give you 800, you know, basically watts consistently, or just like 920 watts consistently. Do you understand how much power that is? Like, you could have dual 3090s on that, actually no problems with the full system at full load. It's still only going to draw about 700-800 watts. Okay, there's still going to be headroom, so there's no point in doing that. Also, when you're gaming, it uses different amounts for different CPU percentage usage and GPU usage. It's never consistently at 100%. The only time that happens is when you're rendering a lot, and often that's on your CPU. So, or on your GPU. It doesn't use both of them simultaneously, which resets that argument back again. So I hope this has helped. I hope it's been informative and that you guys are better prepared for speccing and budgeting on your machines. Until next time, hope you guys stay safe, keep well, and I will see you on the flip side.